course. Ms. Jones-Blackhurst, are you on the phone? Oh. I'll just wait. We have folks on the phone now. Anybody on the phone with us?
Wow, nobody's there.
Perfect.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I got a lot of people that haven't shown
Well, we
up.
will continue with the roll call. Thanks for joining us, those of you who are on the phone. Your presence today is important. Mr. Hahn, are you on the phone?
Dan's on the phone, Steve.
Mr. Chairman.
Tommy White's? Where's Tommy White? That's Tommy White.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hornbuckle?
Wow.
Well, Ms. Jones-Blackhurst is with us. Mr. Newcomb is
Yeah,
here.
I'm right here.
Great, thank you. Here. Mr. White? I'm here. Mr. Taberti, are you on the phone?
I don't know if they
Mr.
have a
Evans?
quorum.
Present. Mr. Hahn?
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Well, we have a quorum.
Barely.
We'll move on as others join. We'll announce them.
Wow. That's embarrassing. Huh. Thursday morning in Las Vegas. Maybe somebody was partying. Oh, man. Wow.
Okay, we will open agenda item 2. Is there any member of the public that would like to address the board?
Steve's trying to hold a straight face.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good, thank you.
My name is Adam Plant. I'm a former professional football player. And I just wanted to read the letter of the second African-American player to ever play in college. His name is Mr. Jack Trice. The letter is...
Mr. Plant, if you want, you can just wait. We'll clean this up so that we can listen closely to what you have to say.
No problem.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Right. So the letter goes, my thoughts just before the first real college game of my life. The honor of my race, family, and self is at stake. Everyone is expecting me to do big things. I will. My whole body and soul are to be thrown recklessly about the field tomorrow. Every time the ball is snapped, I will be trying to do more than my part. On all defensive plays, I must break through the opponent's line and stop the play in their territory. Beware of mass interference. Fight low with your eyes open toward the play. Watch out for cross bucks and reverse in runs. Be on your toes every minute if you expect to make good. These are the words of the second ever African American to play college football, Mr. Jack Trice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Morning. And if I could ask the folks on the phone to put your phones on mute, that would be great. We get a little background noise as well as some ringing. So the ringing's probably ours.
My name is Cameron Siswick. I come from 5 generations of college and professional football players. In fact, my great-great-grandfather, Sam Williman, was the head coach at Ohio State and Iowa State, where he made the bold decision to play just the second African-American college football player at the time. His name was Jack Trice. He was tragically and controversially killed in just his second game. His decision didn't work out very well at the time, but the Jack Trice Stadium at Iowa State is a prime example of how doing the right thing always does. Pardon the interruption, but has anyone read the settlement the NFL somehow convinced thousands of former players into signing? July 7th, 2014, players who have died or will die after this date are ineligible, as are any who may be diagnosed with CTE if a definitive diagnosis for the living is developed. Can someone start standing up for the former players here? All we see is millions of dollars being spent on the Raiders are coming billboards and advertisements, and nothing to get out ahead of this glaring problem that the Raiders need to address. The new CTE studies are real, and there needs to be studies for all levels of former NCAA and NFL players, and money allocated from the billionaires and the leagues who profited off the cover-up. The good news is, there's a chance we will find a cure for the players affected soon. The bad news is the players just signed away all their rights. This is an adversity that can bring together all the former players and that can bring together our country. Football is a sport that has brought together our country with the disciplines of teamwork, strategy, perseverance, and toughness. The only way
Oh, boy.
to reinvest in the culture of football is to find a cure for all former players and for the billionaires to invest money into studies that do so. It's only a matter of time before the mothers of America stand up for the sons of football. I, for one, am not going to let the NCAA and professional football cover-ups tarnish a game that my family has sacrificed everything for over the last century. The Raiders have an incredible opportunity to not only change our community, but to also do something different and trailblaze a new process of giving a percentage of their massive profits to ongoing studies in search of a cure for the millions of former NCAA and professional football players.
Mr. Siswick,
I call it
ask you to
football
wrap up.
played for a purpose instead of football played for a profit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Hill, members of the panel, Alita Dupree for the record. This is my first time speaking before this panel. I don't know much about sports, but I've been waiting for this day. I've lived in this community for almost 16 years without a stadium. And I am one of the people of this state, making me a constituent of this stadium district. It is my hope today to help fulfill a dream of mine to have a world-class stadium in this town. And I believe we're on the edge here. I say briefly, I hope that today we will resolve these issues. So we will float those bonds next month. And I look forward to later this year seeing the fruits of this patient labor today. That in 2020 I will see this stadium, which will belong to the people of this state, of which I am one of them. I look forward to this meeting and thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we're going to go back to make sure we know who is on the phone. So, Mr. Hahn, are you on the phone?
Yes, I am.
Mr. Hornbuckle?
I am, but the phone continues to ring in the background. I'm not sure what the deal is.
Yeah,
Yeah, same with me, Steve. The phone's ringing.
Yeah, we understand. We can hear that as well, and I know people are working on that. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Jones Blackhurst? Ms. Jones Blackhurst, was that you? We may need to try to reconnect with Ms. Jones Blackhurst.
There's nobody there.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Taberti, are you on the phone?
Where the hell is that coming from?
That's a really good question.
Is there numbers we can call them? Yes, if you would, please. Because this is just not working. I got Chris Smothers 3 different times.
So just to let everybody know who's on the phone, we can hear you. And I do want to recognize Ms. Fitzpatrick for being here, even though she's all the way on the end down there.
Who was that phone call from? 706.
So, we're just going to take a brief recess
Yeah, please.
and hope that it's brief. Thanks.
Wow. That's wow. That is embarrassing. I feel for Stephen Hill. I mean,
That's what it's looking like right now.
wow, that's embarrassing. I'll be right back, folks. I'm not stopping this live stream, okay? Huh. It's bad. It's embarrassing. Ooh.
Okay. They need to fucking be here. Okay, here we go.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
I can't hear anything at this end, though.
Thank you. The county's just working on the technical issues. As soon as they have it resolved, the meeting will resume. We appreciate the patience for the folks that are on the phone.
Thanks.
We have 2 callers live. Hung up. Let's try that again. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
So somebody legitimate, I think.
We have two lines. Yeah, actually, if they... Who is on the line? Who's on the line here?
Steve, I'm still here, Phil.
Who is still on the line?
Phil Hornbuckle.
Who else is on the line, please? Who else is on the line, please?
I see a lot of empty chairs. Empty, 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 empty. There's a lot of empty chairs there.
Hello, you should be live.
Hello.
You just called in.
Hello.
Are you there? I have three people on the line. Could you please identify who are on
Thank
the
you.
line, please?
Dallas on. Oh, hi, Dallas. How are you? Good. They're one short of a quorum is the problem.
Bill Dallas, we can hear you. Ms. Jones Blackhurst, are you?
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay.
They are 27 minutes into this late starting. Hello, Mr. Fernandez. Hey, folks, you're watching the Stadium Authority live stream, and they one short of a quorum, so that silence you hear.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hornbuckle.
can I give you my proxy so you can proceed?
I don't think that works that way, but I appreciate the offer.
Just trying to move it along.
Hello, can you hear?
We can.
I have someone who just answered the line. Could you identify yourself, please?
Hello.
Is that Mr. Hahn and Mr. Hornbuckle still on the phone?
I am, yes.
Oh, boy.
That's ringing again.
Wow. Yeah, I'll bet some of the members probably thought it was going to start at 1 o'clock. Silence is deafening, folks. Let me explain what's happened here. They are one short of a quorum, maybe two now. And no, they're waiting for a quorum. Is what they're waiting for. They're waiting for a quorum so that they can officially do the meeting and make the decisions that need to be made to move the project forward. They have a lot of agreements to go through. So that's the situation. The question is how long they're willing to wait until they get to a point where they say, you know, we got to adjourn the meeting, because other people have, you know, schedules here. And right now, this is 30 minutes and 24 seconds and counting behind schedule. And there goes Jerry McGrillo going off, I guess, to the bathroom. It's that guy walking up the steps.
Mr. Smothers, are you there?
This is something. Well, let me raise this up and make some commentary here, because oh, ET phone home, ET phone home is, or say his just, say ET phone. Yep, ET phone home indeed. And yeah, this is an embarrassing show for Las Vegas Stadium Authority. They don't have a quorum. And not only that, or the people who comprise that near group, many of them aren't even in the room. So I think what happened was that, I'm just guessing, I really don't know what happened. But it could be a misinformation of time. That phone ringing here in the background, they're still trying to call people. And Malcontent says, I was wondering how they know that the other commissioners are in fact calling in. Yeah, I don't know. They don't. Jerry McGuillow just walked in. He was went to the bathroom. So, but I don't know if someone didn't show up because maybe they thought this was going to be a media circus with other politicians coming in. So I know the Nevada treasurer is supposed to be there. I don't know. So I know that Jeremy Aguilera just went to Stephen Hill and said something to him. I just don't know what he said. And then he just took his, and Aguilera just took his seat. So folks are just sitting there.
Those of you on the phone, could you please identify yourselves?
Hold on a second. Here we go. Look.
Dallas on.
That was it. Dallas Hahn's the only person who identified himself. I guess
anyone else?
They hung up. Wow. Nobody else is responding. Wow. No one else is responding. Huh. Wow. Stephen Hill's look at the sit there in this silence. I mean, it's like, wow, the silence is deafening, folks. I can't have the silence impact my video because then it's just dead space, right? But only one person answered who was on the phone. Originally, Ken Evans had chimed in, and then one other person. He had three on the phone. Now we just heard one voice. Bill Hornbuckle says, hey, what's on the phone? I think one other guy responded, and that was it.
Hello?
Crawford says, this is a joke. They look like... yeah, it's a bad look. I mean, it is a bad look. No question about it. It is a bad look. Punctuated by that ringing phone. Wow. And let's go Oakland. The ghost of Joe Devereaux goes to from Oakland to Vegas. Oh my goodness. That's hilarious. It's sad. I like the people who are involved, so I feel sorry for them. It says Davis doesn't have the money, and Nevada and Clark County don't have. Yeah, yep, you're right. I mean, this underscores how little real interest there is in this project. You know.
Hello.
Look at this, folks.
Hello.
Hello, Bill. It's Steve.
Hey, Steve.
You there too, Dallas?
The other people hung up.
Hello? I'm going to put you live.
Put who live? Yeah, they are. Crawford said UNLV announcement will be in May. They're running dangerously close to that deadline.
Could those on the phone, please identify themselves?
Hello?
One person. There were 3.
Could those on the phone please say their names?
Tito Tiberti.
Tiberti, okay. But that's
Hello?
it.
Say your name, please.
You got people leaving now. Yeah, those guys got up and those folks there got up and left. Hey, that buffering is not me, folks. That buffering is that buffering is them, not this one, this line, okay? So I'm turning it back to me because, as you can hear, you know, they don't have a quorum. I think they actually lost their phone quorum too. You hear that? They lost their phone quorum. And Crawford says Adelson strikes again. You know, Crawford, I was actually thinking that. You know, I was thinking, well, if Adelson is really out of it, and which means he doesn't want to get back into it, is he going to do something to derail this? Wow. Because these are other key casino people that are not on the phone. Nah, you know. Oh. That's... Oh, wow. Let me show you what's going on the other end, folks.
On the phone, please identify themselves.
That's Bill
Bill
Hornbuckle. Bill Hornbuckle. Who else? Nobody else. And Crawford says he thinks the NFL will steal clear from Vegas for a while. Well, the owners' meeting is starts Sunday. That's my phone, sorry. It's still buffering though now.
Debbie called and said I'm dialing you in, and the guy said she's...
They're calling me. It could be. I'm not answering. Sorry. Wow. Still nothing. It's buffering now. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can. Okay, now it's stopped buffering. Nothing has happened. Hey, Corey Brown, you didn't miss anything. Welcome to Zenny62 on live. This is the Stadium Authority meeting. There's buffering, but what's going on is that there's no quorum to hold the meeting, okay? So as Mr. Fernandez has just informed you, no, you haven't missed a thing. And rather than have you sit there and watch a screen that sometimes is buffering, and when it stops buffering, it's obviously, you know, nothing. I just figured I'd turn back. Let me do this real quick. Hold on. Escape that. What I'm doing is I'm trying to clear up the buffering problem. It won't affect the sound, right? It shouldn't affect the sound. Hey, why is the screen blank like that? There it is. Okay, now let me refresh the screen and see what's going on here. Trying to minimize some things here. That's us. Hello, folks. That's us, right? We're not buffering, okay? And that's them, all right? And let me close some other windows here on my end, like that one. Okay. And then let me close this one as well. Okay. And let me shut down this as well. Okay. And what else can I close? All right, let me refresh this screen. See if there's anything we can do here. And to make sure that we hear what's happening and that we don't have any technical issues that prevent us from missing the meeting in real time, right? So just refresh that screen. Slow to refresh. I'm gonna quit iTunes, by the way. Okay, let's see here. Still here, folks. You're still here. Okay, so, excuse me. Just trying to refresh this. Turn up the volume a little bit. And let's see here. Okay. And enlarge the screen, see where we're at. And we've got nothing. It looks like there's somebody, is that somebody standing up there? That person's moving. See that, so there's probably signs. You know, that's Stephen Hill. See that empty chair, right? That's Stephen Hill. They're commiserating. All right. Okay. So I have a feeling they're going to call the meeting because they don't have anybody on the phone. So I have a feeling they may call the meeting. That's just my feeling. I don't hear anything. Don't hear a thing. Okay. I'm reading your. I'm trying to read what you're saying there, Crawford. Let's see here. It's a, Malcolm says you're right on the good luck. The NFL said good luck. We'll see. You even have trolls on the Clark County site say, Raiders belong in Oakland. Let me go back and enlarge this and see what's happening. That silence is not a freeze frozen screen. You can see people moving, okay? And that person walking, that's Stephen Hill right there, who's about to take his seat, it looks like, right there. See that? He's just sat down, okay? Someone just arrived. I don't know who that is. She's obviously a guest, sitting down, right? But clearly, in terms of quorum, they don't have one. And I don't know if they're waiting for fortunes to change and all of a sudden people call in again, or what. Now here comes somebody down here, walking over in this direction to talk to the Raiders.
Our county control room.
That's county control room. So Steve Hill just got up again. And that's Jeremy Arguello. I guess he's going to use the bathroom again. Oh, somebody called in.
Go ahead and announce yourself.
Dallas Son. Bill Hornbuckle.
Tito Purdy.
That's 3 people. The person I thought was, he said, go ahead, announce yourself. It's now 49 minutes.
Bill, are you still on the phone?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep, we're good.
I can't hear them, though.
Huh. It is now 49 minutes since this meeting started, almost an hour. That man sitting down, that's Tommy White. He was already there. Yeah, the next meeting is scheduled for
the folks on the phone hear me?
That is a slouch of exasperation.
Bill, Dallas, Tito, can you hear us?
Barely, Steve.
Yeah, we can hear you barely, Steve. This is Dallas.
I can barely hear you. This is Tito.
Okay. We will speak loudly and ask you to turn your phones up because I think we need to take advantage of the opportunity. We have a quorum on the phone, and we will call the meeting back to order. Agenda item 3 is the approval of the agenda. Are there any inclusions of emergency items or deletions of any items recommended by the board? And if not, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, thank you. I will be brief with comments today. Agenda item 4. Our agenda is basically broken up into 4 portions. We'll get status updates from staff and the Raiders. Items 9 through 21 are documents that have been previously approved by the board, but have some changes in them. 22 and 23 were reviewed during our last meeting, but were not approved at that time, and so we'll revisit those. Agenda items 24 through 29 are new. They are predominantly documents just needed in order to facilitate the transaction, but we'll go through those quickly as well. And I think I'll just stop my comments there. I'll make a few as we introduce individual items, but any other members of the board that want to make a comment? Mr. Evans?
Thank you. For the record, Ken Evans, and I'll be brief as well. Just wanted to give everyone an update regarding the Community Benefits Plan Oversight Committee. Have had several conversations in terms of the pathway forward, moving it forward. I've talked with staff, talked with our Stadium Authority Board chair. In addition to that, also had a conversation with Lynn Littlejohn, who basically has created and moved forward with the foundation regarding construction. So that gets us off to a good foot. Having said that, I anticipate that we will have a meeting calendared as well as all the logistics together to move forward with that in the not too distant future. But I did want to at least acknowledge it on public record.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Anybody else? Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 5, approval of the minutes of the Stadium Authority Board meeting of February 15th. If the board's had an opportunity to review those minutes and entertain any suggestions for changes in those minutes, and if there are none, entertain a motion for approval.
Tommy White, motion to approve.
Ken Evans, second.
If there's any further discussion, if not, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you. We'll open agenda item 6, receive a status report from our staff.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity. Just a brief update on the work over the past few weeks. Most notably are the documents that the Stadium Authority Board will go through today in terms of getting those completed and prepared for completion as this part of the process comes to its end. In terms of revenue collection for room tax revenue, which we are always concerned about, the total for the month of January, which is the most recent available, was $4.7 million, about 4% above projections, which is a positive. Since the last 3 months, we've seen numbers come in under projections. The total will increase by about $60,000 after collections from Henderson and North Las Vegas are received. You'll recall that these kind of roll in a little bit later. Through the fiscal year, total revenue of $28.1 million exceeds the year-to-date budget by about $210,000, or 0.8%. For the full term of the Stadium Authority Board, this full phase 1 since March, when the tax began being imposed, we are up 6.1% over projections. Stadium Authority Board moved forward to engage Bailey to perform a fiscal audit for 2018.
That's for the stadium budget. That's not for a bond issue. Okay, people make that mistake all the time.
A recently completed audit was. A recent audit was completed. You heard that report previously, and they will serve also as the county auditor for fiscal 2018. Finally, the annual budget process is upon us. Stadium Authority Board, like every other public agency, is required to have a budget. This is going to require a budget hearing between the days of May 21st and May 31st, which will require us to reschedule one of our meetings in order to meet that specific window, which is specifically required. Hopefully that'll be a relatively brief meeting, but nonetheless, we will need to schedule a special meeting outside of our normal meeting time in order to make that happen. Beyond that, Mr. Chairman, the schedule. Today, the Stadium Authority Board has before it all of the documents as the chairman laid out. The goal will be to approve those should the Stadium Authority Board find them to be consistent with their understanding and expectation. They will then be compiled and provided again to the NFL, who have the owners meeting coming up. They will subsequently be reconsidered by the Stadium Authority Board on the 28th under the assumption that all of the outstanding items will be completed, including all blanks filled in, and there are some items that are pending because of the simultaneous closing nature of all of these documents. Things like the, we'll talk through them as we go through. The expectation is that because the meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, the 28th, that tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., the Stadium Authority Board will post its agenda for next Wednesday, including all of the documents that are finalized in this meeting today, and will supplement that as additional information becomes available to finalize all the documents for the meeting on the 28th. Once the meeting is completed on the 28th, should everything go through according to the current plan, the resolution will be sent to the county for it to include as part of its bond ordinance on April 3rd, ultimately with the goal of selling the bonds, pricing the bonds, and then selling them in the weeks that will follow.
Correct me if I'm wrong, the projections that we made and are measuring against, we made a little over a year ago when we started this process. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So there are a number of different entities that follow the room tax and how well it's doing. Our numbers are based on the original projections that we made that could be different than the way others track that room tax. So from a year-over-year basis, that's not what we're reporting. We are reporting versus the projection of the room tax that we made 15 months ago or so.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, that's true. I would also note that the room tax that the Stadium Authority Board depends on is slightly different than other room tax because of the nature of the within the gaming corridor, without the gaming corridor, correct? So they will inevitably be somewhat different.
Thank you. So we'll open agenda items 7 and 8 simultaneously and ask Mr. Bedane and the Raiders team to the microphone. In agenda item 8, we'll discuss the design, the GMP, and guaranteed maximum price and the budget for the stadium. Just so the board is really, I know you know, but to remind you, we will be approving these for the most part as a part of the development agreement. The budget itself actually determines the level of security that is needed in order to issue bonds. And any cost increases in addition to what is in the budget will be treated as is already documented in the development agreement. So there'll be any cost increases incurred along the way will be needed to be funded in order for the bond portion of the funding to continue in its normal course. So I'd like to thank the Raiders for being with us today, and welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to allow Mr. Webb to provide the bulk of our comments today. I'll just add a few things. One, as far as the project goes, everything is on time. You see a lot of activity on the site. I believe we're almost complete with excavation. We have a cement batch on site now too, and a lot of work going on the site. As Jeremy mentioned, we are headed from here to Florida for the league meetings. Our agenda item is set for Tuesday. If you've been to the preview center, we open it up this week to Oakland season ticket holders. And so we've seen approximately 1,100 people book appointments from out of town to fly in to look at ticket product. So as we talk about increasing tourism and we talk about bringing visitors to town, this is something we didn't really even plan on. But I was in there yesterday and just anecdotally talking to a season ticket member who said, well, we decided to make this a 4-day trip. So they booked 4 nights at the Bellagio. You're welcome, Mr. Hornbuckle. And they said they're going to a bunch of shows and making a trip out of it. So just another benefit.
Hi, thank you.
You're welcome. And I'll let Mr. Webb provide the bulk of our comments today.
Yeah. Welcome, Mr. Webb. I just want to say thank you for the time that you've taken to reach out to the individual board members and go through these issues with them in detail. It's certainly appreciated.
It's been our pleasure, and I think it was quite helpful for both the board members and for me personally. Good morning. Item 8 on your agenda, you've asked us to provide a brief dissertation about 4 elements: the stadium design, the guaranteed maximum price design build agreement. I'll just refer to it as the design build contract, if you don't mind. The guaranteed maximum price amendment, the GMP, and the stadium project budget in a comprehensive way. First of all, let me take the first item. The stadium design. First of all, the stadium design is still in progress, and that may seem a little unusual to people that build a house or something like that. Normally the design is completed before you begin construction, but it's very typical in a design build process for the actual construction to proceed to completion of the design. And it's quite beneficial, especially from a scheduling standpoint. It allows the construction to overlap the design and therefore compresses the schedule. And in our case, that's very, very beneficial, not just beneficial, quite critical. The major features of the stadium, and there are many, but first of all, let me just generalize by saying that this is easy to think of as the Raiders Stadium, and it's certainly going to be a first-class Raiders facility, but it is truly going to be a world-class sports and entertainment venue designed with the other 355 days or potential event days in the year, in not just in mind, but in the front of our minds. It's an enclosed, climate-controlled facility with an ETFE roof. That stands for ethylene tetrafluoroethylene. It's a high-strength polymer that is very abrasive resistant, very lightweight. It has superior properties in terms of its chemical, electrical, and energy radiation resistance. So it's far superior to glass in those respects. And that lets in natural light, which we'll be able to regulate by a frit pattern that we will have embedded in those ETFE layers. It'll be highly transparent building, although it will during the daytime look black but from the outside, but on the inside it's transparent to the outside, and this will be especially apparent and noticeable at nighttime when the lights inside the building are visible from outside. The light transmitting portion of the roof is about 550 feet wide by 750 feet long, more than 400,000 square feet. Just let that number set in. That is a huge skylight in a facility like this. The size of the building from the floor itself to the peak of the roof is approximately 226 feet. About a little more than 20 feet of that below the existing grade. And the idea is to balance the site in terms of the soil and the topography so that roughly half the people, when they enter the main concourse, will go down into their seats and the other half will go up. This allows us to have less congestion in elevators and escalators, actually allows us to require fewer escalators and elevators when we balance the building like that. There's about 1.75 million square feet of finished, publicly accessible space inside the building. And that's comprised of 7 major public levels going from the event level all the way up to the press box. On the exterior of the building, one of the signature features is a ribbon structure, which is not just aesthetic, but it has 2 prime functional roles. One functional role is it is a glorified means by which the rain on the roof gets channeled down into the storm system. Secondly, it's a means by which fresh air will be inducted into the building and exhaust air will be exhausted from the building. It also has a rather dramatic lighting feature. There's 9,000 lineal feet of LED lights that will illuminate the exterior and accent the exterior of the building, which are embedded into this ribbon structure. Another key kind of iconic feature of the facility are what we're referring to as operable lanai doors. The goal here is to have a fully climate-controlled facility that can operate year-round, but also evoke the feeling of an outdoor stadium, which, after all, especially during football games, is the history of the event. And so these operable lanai doors on the north side of the facility are approximately 80 feet high and 220 feet wide. So that when they're in their open position, they provide not only a dramatic view of what's going on inside the stadium, but a dramatic view from within the stadium to the north, looking up towards City Center and the rest of the Strip. Certainly a signature feature of this facility, not completely unique, but highly unusual, is the retractable natural turf field. And this field is contained in one singular tray about 4 feet deep. And during its growth period, which is virtually every day except when it's being played upon, it will slide along a series of 13 steel rails outdoors to the south of the building where it will grow. It happens to be a heated field, so we'll be able to promote grass growth year round. When this field slides out, it exposes the concrete floor, which will be the event floor for concerts and truck pulls and other things like that. It'll also be the basis upon which an artificial turf field will be installed for UNLV and other collegiate football games. In order to accomplish that, it's quite an engineering feat, actually, and it is the analogy to this operable field would be where the Arizona Cardinals play. They have a similar design, and we've benefited from their experience. I'd like to say that we've learned from some of their mistakes. I don't want to criticize what they've done, but over the course of 10 years or more in operating that, they've learned some things they wish they had done differently, and so we're able to benefit from their experience. But our stadium differs from that in one area of complexity. In Arizona, the structure above where that field slides out is simply a standing room only mezzanine. And so there's a great deal of structure, concourses, seating, all the rest to be supported. In our stadium, however, we have the full complement of concrete concourses, restrooms, concession stands, concrete seating bowls, which means the trusses necessary to support that portion of the building are enormous. And rather than just float those trusses 4 or 5 feet so that we have clear span clearance of about 14.5 feet, and that allows buses to be parked under there, which is really helpful for charter service on event day, visiting team chartered buses. But it also allows us to load in and load out major concerts into the stadium. For instance, when the Rolling Stones went out on tour a few years ago, they had two groups of 27 tractor trailers in order to stage that show. So you can imagine 27 tractor trailers needing to move in and move out of a building through a narrow concourse or a narrow truck opening, which is typical, will be vastly improved with this particular design. And that's made possible and necessitated by that field rolling in and out. In the stadium itself, there are 9 clubs, and 3 of these clubs are actually at field level. And the 2 on opposite sides of the 50-yard line allow patrons of those clubs to actually pre-game walk out directly behind the player's bench and beyond the field itself. But there are a number of other clubs. This particular photo shows one of the sideline clubs on the home side, in this case, where prior to the game, for player introductions and warm-ups, the players will actually walk through that club, come from the locker room directly through that club, which we think is kind of a terrific attribute for club members. But there are a variety of other clubs throughout the stadium. In addition to the 9 clubs, there are 108 luxury suites. This number is expandable for Super Bowls. We can take it up to more. We've built the structure into the facility and the infrastructure, such as plumbing, mechanical, electrical systems, so that we can add suites, and we have designated locations for those for the Super Bowl. Each one of these suites generally accommodates about 22 people and have their own individual restrooms. Another really iconic signature feature of the stadium is the memorial torch, which is on the north side of the building, just interior to the lanai doors. And it is about 78 feet high from base to the top. And this gives you a view of what it would look like from the upper seating bowl looking out beyond the torch to the strip. There are approximately 8,000 club seats, and each one of those club seats being hosted. So for instance, for NFL games, the fixed seating is a little over 62,000, about 62,500 plus standing room onlys. For MLS soccer events, it's approximately 60,000 seats. End stage concerts, depending on how it's configured, would be on the order of 53,000. Center stage concerts would probably be somewhere around 72,000. And for the Super Bowl, we can enlarge the capacity to about 70,000 people. About 42% of the seating is in the lower bowl, and that's a very high beneficial percentage in terms of US Bank Stadium, which is, in everyone's opinion, a first-class stadium, and was the host of the most recent Super Bowl. To give you an idea of an example of how we not only meet that but exceed it, we have in our building more than 40% more elevators and escalators than in US Bank Stadium. So we're not just exceeding it on the margins, but we're exceeding that substantially. The stadium will feature 3 high-definition, very large video boards, 2 on the south side, and 1 each spanning the lanai doors and the torch on the north side. There will be a dedicated Raider locker room, but in addition to the dedicated Raider locker room, there will be locker rooms for UNLV and visitors teams. And each of those 2 locker rooms is divided with a movable partition, so that we'll have 4 fully functional locker rooms for tournament play. We will be able to host 4 additional teams in the facility, and those will also come in handy for concerts. In terms of security, there are a number of security features that I don't really care to go into in a public meeting, but Tom Blanda and our operations people have been working pretty consistently with Metro and the Fire Department, Homeland Security, FBI, and a number of other law enforcement and security people to make sure that we have a stadium that's really first class in terms of its state-of-the-art best practices for security. One of the features is a hardened perimeter, hardened security perimeter on the exterior of the building that enhances patron flow. And finally, we'll have a sophisticated, comprehensive building management system and a telephone system that works.
That was bad.
To the design.
That was mean. Yeah, that was mean.
I just said that's just mean.
It was mean.
Okay, thanks. After what we've been through the last couple of weeks, I think it's charitable. The design build agreement. First of all, let me just, without throwing around a term, design build contract, let me just give a brief explanation of what that is. The design build contract method is a method of project delivery in which a single entity, the designer, the design build team, works under a single contract to design and construct a project. One entity, one contract, one unified flow of work from the inception of the contract through the completion, and it integrates the roles of both the designer and the constructor. Design build is an alternative means of delivering a construction project, alternative to the traditional design bid build process method, where the design and construction are split into separate entities and each have their own separate contracts and separate workflow. Studies have shown, by the way, that the design build approach reduces overall project costs by something on the order of 6 to 10%, and reduces shortens the contract schedule by more than 20%.
Sorry for the buffering.
In this particular case, the design builder is a joint venture on the construction side formed by Mortensen Builders out of Minneapolis, the builders of, among other major sports facilities, US Bank Stadium, and McCarthy, which is construction, which is also a national, highly prominent builder, and they have a standing joint venture.
Sorry for the buffering, folks. It's not my fault, though.
Which is probably, I've referred to them here, I think, even as the grandfather of sports architects. And that team will be put in place as soon as we have the approval of various documents that we anticipate you approving today, and we formally sign the design build agreement. In all aspects, the design build contract complies with the Southern Nevada Tourism Improvements Act. And it, as I said, has several key attributes. One is that it shifts the...
Oh, jeez. It's a late play out. Sorry for the... I don't know why I'm apologizing. It's not my fault. It's them. Okay. Let me see if I can get this to stop buffering. I don't know what's going on in there. And hold on, folks. I'm trying to refresh the screen to clear up this buffering problem. And, okay, here we go.
Within a year.
Okay.
But the architect, as I said a moment ago, has been under contract directly with staff and responsive to our design priority.
They have a buffering problem, folks. Sorry for the buffering, folks. I don't know why it's just getting worse.
Just a mere 861 days from today. The guaranteed maximum price.
There we go.
All in, the stadium construction guaranteed maximum price is just a shade less than $1.4 billion.
Thank you. You hear that?
It includes the architect.
You hear that, Rich Filota? You're wrong.
Builder. It includes general conditions such as the contractor's management personnel on the on-site services, on-site job site offices, which is approximately 100,000 square feet of office space and things like that. And then it stadium builder, having been fully embedded in our process for more than a year, in developing the design, we are. Well, let me just say that the guaranteed maximum price.
Sorry for the buffering.
Is complete. Roughly 2/3 of the excavation has been completed.
Oh boy, sorry for the buffering, folks. And this buffering is not on my end, so it's on their
Reliable. Stadium budget. In addition to the guaranteed maximum price, there are a number of other costs.
Thank you.
And so this total stadium development budget is approximately $1.8 billion.
Thank you.
The sources for that $1.8 billion, as you know, are a dedicated contribution from the county, which approximates 42% of that $1.8 billion, and the balance, 58%, made up by the Raiders. The uses of that $1.8 billion translates into six.
I wish they clear up their buffering. Jeez. This is Clark County's fault, not mine. Sorry, folks.
For $1.4 billion. But this $1.8 billion stadium development is not the entire project at large. Because what that stadium development omits is the creation of remote parking, which is underway, the Raiders Training Center and team headquarters. Related to the stadium development and other aspects that I've just described exceed $2 billion easily. And of course, that $2 billion doesn't even include the cost of relocating more than 200 Raiders employees and staff members, nor does it include the NFL relocation fee. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. And I've got a couple of questions. I will say thanks for both for the presentation and for pointing out what you did at the end, that the $1.8 billion that is showing on the current budget is for the
sorry, folks. I don't. The county. It's horrible. Sorry about that, folks.
that somewhat more.
This is the important part. Dang it! Come on, Clark County, get your live stream active.
Kind of understandably, the costs have gone up somewhat. They certainly have not gone down.
No. Folks, I'm going to see if I can go back to the normal screen size, and maybe that'll help rather than Let's see if that makes a difference. See, it's the buffering's on their end, okay? Let's see here. Okay. That is weird. That buffering's weird. So let's go back to
And that would typically be in a major first-class stadium that we could not host. We expect to go after all of them. We've designed and will be constructing a number of specialized features that allows this particular stadium to go after them more aggressively and effectively than on final game. And this is done with some substantial difficulty and some seats, but it won't be necessary very often either. But in order to make
let me try something else, folks. It's live.
designers now that allows you to look at the actual sight lines of any point on the field from any seat. And we've done that and are confident that the complete range of play throughout the field will be completely visible from every seat.
Just trying to eliminate any possible internal causes for that I don't see any. So it's just Clark County. Let me try something else here.
And kind of a segue into a roof issue and then a couple of roof and heat type questions. But first, from a rigging standpoint, can you rig from that roof?
Let's see here. Sorry, folks. I'm trying to figure out how to get rid of this buffering. It's not really on my end. I'm trying to make sure it's not on my end.
But I wasn't sure what the rigging capability of the
TFE roof, and that structure was.
Well, it depends on what's being rigged. So for instance,
No, that's not the guaranteed maximum price for the stadium. Look, pay attention. The guaranteed maximum price of the stadium is $1,398,000,000. Okay, it's not 1.8. I don't know how many times I've been over this with people. The Review Journal got it wrong. The Sun got it wrong. Don Webb just told you what the guaranteed maximum price was. The overall stadium budget is 1.8 billion, and it's actually north of that. So you're looking at something that's more than 2.4 billion in terms of total cost, okay? But please, read the documents. Read the fucking documents. Why don't you all just read, you know? Stop trying to make things how you want to see them. Just deal with what's in black and white. It's right there on the website of the Stadium Authority. It tells you exactly what it is. All you got to do is read them. You read the pro forma documents. They're right there. Read about the Braves
for instance,
stadium.
when the Rolling Stones go on tour, they don't really rely upon the infrastructure.
There's no opinion about a total cost, Crawford. It's right there in black and white. It's 1.8 billion is the total cost. The guaranteed maximum price is for the stadium fucking shell, all right? Just to build the shell. The shell is like building a bottle, but then you have the land on top of it, which is, you know, an additional cost, and then parking and everything else. Get with the program. It's not a matter of opinion. It's right there in the fucking documents. Read it. And read other stadium documents. Understand this stuff. This is ridiculous, you know? These are standard terms that have been used in the stadiums long before you guys paid attention to this stuff. Get the fuck with it. Jesus. And this buffering's annoying. Damn it. I'm going to fill in the discussion. Okay, first of all, what they're talking about is the complexity of anchoring the roof, that special fabric roof. In fact, that was an issue in Minnesota. And it takes a specialized type of forming of steel, which, if they haven't purchased the steel yet, that's going to bump up the cost even more. So that $1.8 billion stadium development budget, that budget's going to get busted. And they haven't
include a result of being able to cool the building into 70 degrees plus or minus 2 degrees or something.
Yeah, it's actually 72 degrees plus or minus 5 degrees in the summertime.
Okay.
And
no, when they talk about rigging, they're talking about how the roof is rigged to the structure, okay? So these are important matters to understand because the roof has to be sufficiently anchored by the frame, and the frame in turn has to be sufficiently implanted in the foundation. That foundation has had problems.
yeah, there's a substantial but measurable and predictable humidity gain by the field being rolled inside the natural transpiration of grass. One of the byproducts is not only oxygen, but it's also water vapor. And so that's been factored in terms of the
Shading structures and things like that are in the plan of.
And so part of that will be addressed by trees and other landscaping elements as well as shade structures. We're looking very closely at how people are queued up at the usually trash management, trash planning.
Let me try something else here. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Hold on, folks.
Conditions, climate control, just for the reason of cutting down on odors.
Let's see if I can turn the Wi-Fi off and then refresh the screen and let it work off my phone. Let's see if that helps. Even though it may be the county's stream, I'm making sure that the internet signal through the computer is not contributing. I'm shifting to the phone. So that's what I've just done here. All right, so here we go now. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. There's that.
The lessons learned in terms of water use and water conservation.
To bring it to full screen, okay? So there's full screen. Hopefully that makes a difference. Otherwise, it's on the county. It's the county's live stream, not mine. I'm simply broadcasting. Okay. So it's the county's fault.
Say that there is no opportunity. There will be isolated areas of the building, specialty area. Virtually completed and has been built and is in the marketing center at Town Square so that prospective suite purchasers can actually go through and see what it is we're talking about.
Right, and thank you. And I guess what I could clarify and say is maybe a better way.
Sorry, folks, this is the,
Thank you very much.
hang on a second.
Any questions from the board regarding?
The county's live stream is really just buffering like heck, so this is them. This is on them, folks. It's not on me, it's on them. This live stream issue is with the county.
Actions that are necessary as we go forward through in preparation for the meeting on March 28th. So with that, Mr. Chairman, with your permission.
Sorry, folks. I'll try my Chrome browser. Okay, I'll try the Chrome browser. It's a good idea. Let me shift over to Chrome. See if that makes a difference. I doubt it, because here's the thing. It's like on my YouTube. Well, I'm gonna try it anyway. Take your advice. But let me open up Chrome and try that. Then go over some shutting. I'm not shutting us down. Okay, we're still going, all right? So I'm gonna go over to Chrome. It's a good idea, and see if that makes a difference. Hold on a second, folks. What I'm going to do also is my computer's just slow to respond, period. Hold on a second. Okay, let me force quit. Force quit Firefox. Okay, that's force quit. All right. And opening Chrome. So I'm going to Chrome. Let's Chrome and see if that makes a difference. Good idea, malcontent. And we'll see what that makes a difference. Sorry about this, folks, but also I have a feeling that it's the county's live stream. Now, as far as the meeting, there's a lot of information I'm sad that I missed regarding some very important concerns I have with the roof and the stadium structure with respect to the foundation. The foundation is on land that has had a problem across the freeway with sinking, okay? And no one's raised that issue here. I don't know if Donald Webb's going to be at the league meeting or not, but no one's raised the issue here. And they should, because if it's not properly dealt with, that problem, then you could wind up with a stadium that that's dangerous to sit in, all right? That's what you could wind up. You could wind up with a stadium that's dangerous to sit in, okay? All right, so here we are now with the Stadium Authority meeting again.
I know there was some discussion earlier about the GMP agreement, and that will eventually be attached as an exhibit. At this point, the only change to the finding is that there was the possibility of getting a bond to secure the contractor's obligations, and instead of having a bond, we will be getting a parent guarantee from the parent companies of the contractors. And so literally all we did was remove the bond alternative at this point, and then the form of that parent guarantee will be attached.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, entertain a motion to approve.
Tommy White, motion to approve.
Ken Evans, second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, agenda item 13.
So agenda item 13 relates to evidence of financial security for the performance of the financial obligations of the developer. The exhibits are not yet attached, but the revision was made just to suggest that there will be actually 2 exhibits and 2 items of evidence rather than just one.
Any questions on that? Okay, entertain a motion.
Tommy White, motion to approve.
Ken Evans, second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Agenda item 14, I will make one comment here where this is the review of in form of the stadium lease agreement. We'll notice in section 6.7 that the Raiders have been generous enough to allow what has been termed an authority suite as a part of this agreement. This is
an authority suite.
A common occurrence in most stadiums. The intention of this suite is to be a community suite. The authority will put together, as we get closer to the time that the stadium opens and the suite would be available for use, we'll put together a policy around the use of the suite, and included in that policy will be reaching out to entities across Southern Nevada and the state for their use in terms of community and economic development, public relations, and things along those lines. I would just say that if you were considering getting season tickets, it's still a good idea. This is not going to be where our season tickets are, although it may be appropriate at time for the stadium authority to use the booth itself. That's not the intention to have the stadium authority use the suite on a permanent basis. So anyway, just wanted to point that out. So, Mr. Arnold?
Good morning. As Chairman Hill mentioned, I'll go over the changes in the next couple set of documents. The first one is the stadium lease agreement. As Chairman Hill further mentioned, section 6.7 does deal with an authority suite, or community suite, if you will. The community suite will be in a location designated by the Raiders. It will contain the customary tickets for suites that size. It will also come with the customary parking passes for suites that size. It will be, in certain events, it will not be available, but when it is not available to certain events, the authority can purchase the rights back to the suite for the ticket price for that event. Any food and beverage in the suite will be paid for by whoever is using the suite. Moving on, we have a change to section 14.7. That is the targeted tax provision. This is a technical change to provide that should a targeted tax happen and it gives the Raiders the right to relocate the team, if they in fact do relocate the team, and for some reason if they do not terminate the lease will automatically terminate if they do in fact relocate the team. It's not changing the deal, it is just a technical glitch. When you go back and read documents for the 400th time, you find things. Section 17.1 is another change. When the lease agreement was first approved back in August-ish, the structure of the Stadco was different. The Stadco itself was owned directly by the Oakland Raiders partnership. They have now put a holding company in between Stadco and the Oakland Raiders partnership. So the document's been updated to provide change of control of either Stadco or Holdco. Their holding company would require the approval of the Stadium Authority should it not be also approved by the NFL. You will see in the definitions section some changes of definitions. These are definitions that roll through the suite provision. Premier events, for instance, suites are typically not available to suite holders during Super Bowls, NCAA Final Four, because the stadium, in fact, does not control the suites during those events. The promoting entity does, like the NFL itself. So you'll see those definitions rolling through the definition section of the document. You also see on Exhibit B, changes to the legal description of the land. This is just some formatting changes, but there are just changes to the legal description. And you will also see on Exhibit D, the changes to permitted encumbrances. It's a live site. Easements are being granted in connection with the development. So we're trying to keep up with all of that. Those are the changes to the lease agreement since we last talked to you. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Mr. Evans? Yes, thank you. For the record, Ken Evans. Mr. Arnold, just very quickly, what's the general purpose of Holdco, the other entity that has been introduced into the lease agreement?
Right. Essentially, the way this structure, they have changed the structure because the Oakland Raiders Limited Partnership owned the team, and it was going to own directly Stadco. What now happens is the Oakland Raiders Limited Partnership, which is where I believe the Mark Davis family sits, will own a holding company. That holding company will own the company that owns the team and the company that operates the stadium. So the team and the stadium will be sister companies.
It's their way of getting out of the non-relocation agreement, its limitations.
It's basically for remoteness, so you don't the liabilities of one don't incur to the benefit of the others. It's a standard structure that we have. Most stadiums are done this way, where the ownership entity owns the team in one entity and the stadium entity in another.
Any other questions from the board?
You fives are fools.
Okay, I entertain a motion for approval.
Tommy White, motion to approve.
Ken Evans, second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you. So item 15.
The next document is the development agreement. And as you might imagine, the lease agreement and the development agreement are the two main documents for this transaction. The development agreement has been updated in section 3.2 to recognize that the amount of the personal seat license financing will be not less than $250 million. If you'll remember, Bank of America is loaning to the Raiders organization, their Stadco, $850 million. Of that, there's a sub-limit of $250 at least that will be financed and look to be paid back from personal seat licenses that people purchase. We've also changed section 3.2B1 to recognize the minimum amount of what we call pay-go funds that will be available to the Raiders as of April 1st. If you'll recall, there has been accrued hotel occupancy tax in the Stadium Authority's account through today and tomorrow, and et cetera. The bonds will not be issued until best case scenario May 1st. If all of these documents are approved on March 28th, with all the exhibits, with everything, and the land is transferred on March 28th, right after that, the accrued hot tax will be available for the Raiders to use towards the stadium, assuming that they've proven to us they've spent the first $100 million. So we'll get a report from the construction monitor on that first $100 million. So we'll bridge a gap for them and put in to get up to the percentages that we need to get up to. And this just this just recognizes that the construction draw schedule has for that first month $25 million. You will see on page 5 of the document in section 3.2E5, we have put in the percentages out to the 9th decimal place of the pro rata funding. And as Chairman Hill said, it is roughly 44.5% from the Stadium Authority and 55.5% from the Raiders organization umbrella.
Just to point out, that is the percentage of the dollar sharing inside of
The 1.8.
The cost of land, $100 million, and the $50 million at the end.
That's right.
So the relative ratios that Mr. Webb talked about earlier were accurate. So are these. These are just the ratios inside of that expenditure sharing
That's
portion
right.
of
This
the
is
project.
700 divided by the budget minus the land, minus the first 100, minus the last 50. You will see on the next page in section 3.2F, we have clarified language that was requested by the county in the doomsday scenario that the project completion date does not occur and we have leftover money. That money goes back to us for us to give back to the county for them to redeem their bonds. You will see on page 8 in section 3.2H that Stadco has agreed to pay as part of the project budget the for the services of the construction monitor. We'll get to a document later today that is the engagement letter between us and the construction monitor, which is JLL. There are some minimal fees in that. We don't have the money to pay that. It's coming out of the budget. Section 5.8 on roughly page 14. This is the unwind provision. So the way the transaction is structured, as I said before, on shortly after March 28th, should all these documents be approved, the land will actually be transferred to the stating authority. So the stating authority will be owner of the land. At that time, hotel occupancy tax funds will start to move to the raters through the waterfall to bridge the gap between then and May 1st when the bonds are issued. If the bonds are, so there was a need for an unwind should the unthinkable happen that the bonds are not issued in a way that everybody agrees with and the whole transaction needs to be financed a different way. This is essentially the different way that it needs to be financed would be without public funds. And so the unwind provision essentially says that if the county bonds, and these are blank, but these are the dates we've agreed on, the county bonds are not issued by June 30th of this year, Stadco, the raters, have the right prior to March 30th, 2019, so 2019 next year, to tell us they're done. They don't want any public funds on this. They will give us back the hotel occupancy tax that they have used, and we will give them back the land, and they will finance the stadium by themselves. Unlikely scenario, but lawyers are paid to look at unlikely scenarios.
Let them do it.
Deal with every contingency. So that is why this is in here. If after June 30th, we're in that period of time where the raters can terminate this deal, the county and the authority and the raters will have to agree that if the county then issues bonds, that the raters will not terminate up until March 30, 2019, right? So we're not going to get into a position where we're going to issue bonds in this interim and then they can terminate the deal. That's not the point of this. The point of this is if things happen that nobody expects, the raters have a way to continue to build their stadium on a private financing basis.
Let them do it. Let them do it. Let them do it.
Going all the way to the back of the document into the miscellaneous section, my favorite section. Section 21.8 is
Mr. Arnold, can I just clarify that last comment? I mean, really what the unwinding provision does not guarantee that they have the right to continue to build the stadium with their own funding. It just gives everybody the right to get back out of the deal. Is that correct, or is that not correct? So they can then, at that point, they could proceed however they.
Yeah, at that point, they could proceed however they would like. They could also stop.
Yes.
Right. If the unwind is ever triggered, that means there is no public money going into the stadium.
And I realize we've spent more time on this issue than it deserves, given the relative likelihood of it being implemented. But I just want to make that point clear. Thanks.
Section 21.8 is the third-party beneficiary section. Again, the county has certain rights in this document, and we wanted to recognize the county's rights and to agree that we will not change those rights without the county's consent. So that is what's done in 21.8 on the third-party beneficiary provision. In the definition sections on page A4, we have updated the definition of county development agreement since August, the county and the Raiders and their contractors have entered into a series of development agreements. We wanted to capture all of those here as an obligation of the Raiders to comply with those documents. Similarly, on page A-8 and A-9, we have updated the definition of infrastructure improvements to make it clear that the STADCO is responsible for performing any infrastructure improvements that the Nevada Department of Transportation, after the date of this document, requires. We have a letter from the Nevada Department of Transportation that as of today, there are no such improvements that need to be done, but that could change depending on factors around the global development of the site. Page A-13, we have the definition of the project team. When you sign this document, hopefully on March 28th, you will be approving the project team. The project team, as Mr. Webb mentioned, includes the design builder, the architect of record, the lead architect or the design architect, Icon Venue Group as the owners, and Icon Venue Group as the owner's representative. So that's just you approving those folks as working on this project. You'll see again, we've added to Exhibit C the legal description of the land, which is the same legal description that has been updated in the lease agreement. There are a few blanks in the development agreement that will need to be completed before you approve it on March 28th. Principally, the amount of money that the Raiders have spent on the stadium over and above the $100 million, so we can catch up, if you will, to their percentage and just start funding it proportionally.
Great, thank you, Mr. Arnold. Questions from the board?
Ask.
Okay, questions from anyone on the phone? Okay, hearing none, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
Wow.
Tommy White, motion to approve.
Ken Evans, second.
Any further discussion?
Yep.
Okay, all in favor,
Raiders
please say
deal.
aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Boy, they're getting screwed.
Item 16.
Item 16 is the Construction Funds Trust Agreement. If you'll remember, the Construction Funds Trust Agreement is the vehicle through which the Bank of America money and the G4 NFL money and the bond proceeds are doled out in proportion to STADCO to pay for construction costs. There are quite a few changes. Most of them are non-substantive. We've changed the name. Oakland Raiders don't own the Oakland Raiders anymore. It's Raiders Football Club in Recital A. Jones Lang LaSalle, who's the construction monitor, is also a signatory to this document. That's in the preamble. We have made it clear at the insistence of the county that this is on section 1.5, that any money put in the bond proceeds account will also be encumbered by a security interest in favor of the county that secures the obligations of the construction fund trustee to do with the money that they're supposed to do under this agreement. In section 3, on page 5, we've created sub-accounts under the authority contribution trust account. One account is where the tax proceeds will go into, and the other account is where the bond proceeds go into. Again, mechanical, because we're going to have tax proceeds that don't go through the waterfall because it's the accrued tax. Then we'll have tax proceeds and then we'll have bond proceeds that go into a bond account. We've made conforming changes here to what's in the development agreement as to the $25 million of what's called pay-go funds that will be available on the front end. In section 3.3, we have recognized that the county will be directing the investments of the bond proceeds fund pursuant to Nevada law and the county's public funds and investment portfolio. We've also put in some default investment should the county not give investment instructions. Section B on page 8, which is 3.4B, we have cleaned up some of the language here to recognize that there will be a master funding notice, and on it we'll have the application for payment All of this is mechanical and doesn't change what we do, what has been done. In order to get money out of the construction funds trust, Stadco will have to provide a funding notice with an application of payment and lien waivers and all of this. JLL as construction monitor will have to approve that and approve the percentages, and the trustee will have to give notice of all of that to the county, to Bank of America, and to us. You will see on page 9, we've included the percentage that comes over from the development agreement. You'll see on page 10, we've included the percentages there also. On page 12 in 3.4H, as in Harry, we've added some clearer language about monthly statements from the trustee as to the activity in the account. This was important for the county's reporting requirements for their tax-exempt bonds, and we've put it in here to make sure that it happens. Section 4.2 on page 13 is it's a provision that the county felt was necessary, and we did too, that allows the county to object to the use of any of the proceeds should the proceeds have been used for a non-capital cost. You also remember these were being issued tax-exempt bonds here, and tax-exempt bond proceeds can only be used for capital costs. They can't be used for operations and maintenance, for instance.
Right.
And so it's important for the county to meet their tax covenants to their bondholders, so the bonds are not taxable by misuse of the funds, to have a right to look at where the bond proceeds were used. If they were used inadvertently for a non-approved purpose, a cost that was not a capitalized cost, that transaction can be reversed, and Stadco will contribute the money to reverse that. Again, there are protections in this document that it won't be done that way because the reports that we get from the construction monitor on each draw request show where the money goes. But just in case it did go that way, there's another look at it afterwards. Moving along in the document, in section 6 on page 16 is another provision. This deals with the eventuality that perhaps at the bond closing there is not going to be $750 million in the construction account. If you will remember, the statute doesn't require the county to put $750 million in the bond proceeds account. It says up to that, subject to interest rate risk, interest rate profile, and bond profile, and all that kind of stuff. So if there is not $750 contributed at the bond closing, this provision provides that the interest earnings will go into that account to gross it up to $750. Once it gets to that point, then the county gets to deal with the interest earnings, and those interest earnings will go to the reserve fund. Section 8.1 deals with removal of the trustee. We have made it clear that the trustee needs to any substitute trustee needs to satisfy the requirements of the act as to who that trustee is, and the county and the authority and everybody gets notice of any substitute trustee. This likelihood of a substitute trustee in an 18-month or 2-year construction is fairly minimal, but of course you have to provide for it. Section 10.3, we have added provisions to make it clear that certain of the provisions cannot be amended or modified without the consent of the county and other parties, other folks who are not actually parties to this document, but we've made them third-party beneficiary. That's both in 10.3 and in 10.14. Those are the same types of changes. 10.15 is the language regarding the security interest. So that's the language that grants the county a security interest in the bond proceeds fund in case the proceeds ever need to be paid back and they're not paid back from the account. The only reason they need to be paid back is if the stadium doesn't get completed. Again, there's been a lot of sort of what happens if problems here, but you can see we're thinking about things, so there is a contingency here. But as Chairman Hill says, this is a bunch of words that hopefully nobody ever has to read after today. Or the 28th, sorry. 1016 is a compliance with the bond ordinance. This just provides that we will comply with what's in the county's bond ordinance as to the flow of funds, which is our agreement with the county. You will see in the definition section, we've just rolled through here some of the definitions that were changed in the document. We have also attached as Exhibit B the form of funding notice. And we've created an exhibit at the end of the document. Exhibit C includes the fees of the trustee, and Exhibit D is the authorized representatives, and Exhibit F is the county investments, and Exhibit G are all the notice parties.
Great, thank you, Mr. Arnold. Any questions from the board?
I should ask. A
Okay.
lot of them.
Hearing none.
None?
Entertain a motion for approval.
Wow.
Tommy White, motion to approve.
Ken Evans, second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Item 17.
Item 17 is the stadium dispersing agreement. If you remember from last time, the money goes from the county bond proceeds into the construction funds trust. Once all of the things on the construction funds trust have happened, that is, a disbursement request a funding request has been given. The construction monitor says, yes, this is a good funding request. And the construction monitor sets out which proportions of the money come out of there. All the money goes to the dispersing agent. The dispersing agent is the title company. And then the title company actually pays the checks so they can down date and endorse the title policies on an ongoing basis. The changes in this document are mechanical in nature, basically beefing up what has to be given to the title company so they can increase their title company, so they can issue their endorsements. That's in section 3.01B. In section 4.01, we've described the endorsements that go out so they can be attached. In section 4.03, we have clearly put in place what will be put on a funding notice, and then what are the attachments to the funding notice. Section B on 4.03B on page 6 is approval notices that need to be given, again, just to tie up that no money goes anywhere without all the approvals that are needed, both under the statute and under all the documents. The one substantive change is on page 8, which is section 4.07E as in Edward. In that section, we made it clear that if for some reason the dispersing agent doesn't within 2 business days send the money out to where the construction funds trustee and Jones Lang LaSalle have said it needs to go, it can't sit there. It goes back to the construction funds trust where it's much more secure and becomes again subject to the draw procedures. So that was a glitch in the first document. We had them required to send all the money once all the conditions were satisfied, but we didn't have a provision that says, and if the conditions aren't satisfied, what do you do? And we added this and gave them a very short tripwire because we don't want money with the dispersing agent and not immediately going out. We prefer it with the construction funds trustee.
Pardon me, Mr. Chair. One quick question procedurally. I know in here it says that certain things need to be done by the 22nd. Are they restricted to only doing one draw or disbursement a month, or if necessary, could they do multiple draws or disbursements within a month?
Right now, the documents don't require anybody to act other than once a month. They could choose people could choose to get the reports done sooner, and they can choose to have more than one draw a month, but they're set up to require at least one draw a month. Section 5.02C on page 9 is another provision that was requested by the county, where the dispersing agent provides detailed statements of its accounts and where it sent all of the money, so that can then go back to the county, so the county can true up their tax reporting requirements. You will see we added a bunch of addresses on pages 9 and 10. And then again, we updated the definitions to roll through all the other changes we've made to the document. So again, between the last meeting and this meeting, the document has been scrubbed one more time, filled holes, filled in blanks, and get it moving closer to the end.
Thank you, Mr. Arnold. Questions from the board? Okay, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
Tommy White, motion to approve.
Ken Evans, second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Item 18.
So item 18 covers two items related to the land transfer. So the first item is about due diligence and the status of due diligence, and the second is the actual dedication agreement. On the diligence, we continue to make progress, and we're down to a few items. A couple of those items we wanted to talk about with you today. So as we've mentioned, the authority is going to be acquiring the property. And the Stadco entity has already been on site and granting easements and things like that. And three of the documents they've already entered into and have been recorded are with the county. So it's a county development agreement and two off-site improvement agreements. And our concern with those documents was what happens if Stadco, like Mark said, we're looking at worst case scenarios, but what happens if Stadco doesn't perform their obligations under those documents, and we've now acquired the land and those things are recorded. So we've been talking with the county council about our concerns. On the offsite improvement agreements, those relate to relocation of a storm channel and what they call trailer city, which is all the trailers that are gonna be going on the site. We understand that on both those projects, they expect to be done in 60 days. So our view is not a lot of risk there because they're going to be done in 60 days with those two projects. Additionally, they have bonds in favor of the county for completion of those projects. On the development agreement, the Stadium Authority is not taking an express assumption of the obligations under that document. Those will stay with Stadco. And in talking to county council, their view is because the Stadium Authority is not taking an express assignment of those obligations, that they would stay with Stadco. Again, and they also have bonds in place under the development agreement as well. So wanted to, put on the record those concerns and what the resolutions of those concerns were, so everybody was on the same page.
It's also, I think, worth mentioning that we would have no ability to address those issues. Is that right?
Yes, I mean, from a practical perspective.
Nothing we can do.
Right.
Yeah, okay, understand.
As far as other diligence items, we are waiting for a final ALTA survey and wrapping up on title insurance, so we expect those all to be resolved in the ordinary course before the land dedication. And speaking of the land dedication, I think the view was for everybody that we were going to transfer the land on the 28th when all of the documents are signed. But we understand from Stadco and the Raiders folks that may not happen on the 28th. That I think everybody would love it to happen on the 28th, but they might not have all of their ducks in a row, so that it may not happen on the 28th. And Mark can probably speak as to which of the lease or the development agreement has this timeline that we put that it has to happen within 10 days from the date we sign the documents.
Yeah, that's in the development agreement.
And since the dedication agreement was set up for a concurrent sign and close, our thoughts there would be that if we don't close the land transfer on the day we sign it, that we will actually put the dedication agreement in escrow with the deed and the declarations of value, so that it will still concurrently happen at the same time. And best case scenario, it does, but at least we've made a contingency for if it doesn't. On the dedication agreement, most of what's happened is we've just updated the title company. updated the legal description and updated the permitted encumbrances. And you'll see those in the red line, but pretty ministerial type items.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the board?
They should be asking a lot.
Hearing none, all in favor, or a motion for approval?
I don't think they understand what they're being told.
Wait, motion to approve.
Ken Evans, second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
And just to make sure that we're kind of keeping up with the record, could the folks on the phone identify themselves with their vote so that we make sure that we still have everybody?
Dallas Hahn, aye. Tito Taberi, aye.
Mr. Hornbuckle, are you still there? Okay, we'll let the record reflect those two aye votes. Any opposed?
Hornbuckle's not
Okay,
there.
thank you.
Hey, there's no quorum.
Agenda 19 is the personal seat license marketing and sale agreement. Again, you'll remember from the statute that the authority holds the right to sell personal seat licenses, which gives a person the right to buy season tickets. This document basically hires the Raiders to be our agent in doing all of that, which is typical of all of these stadium transactions. You'll see on page 3 in section 2.1 at the end that we've filled in the $250 million of the financing program under here. And let me be clear, that doesn't mean that that's how much money at the end of the day the Raiders can make from PSL sales. Hopefully they make a whole bunch of money, more than 250, but 250 is the amount of money that Bank of America will loan against those sales to be available immediately for the construction budget. We have also filled in a blank on section 5.1 as to when the annual budget needs to be provided by Stadco, or I'm sorry, by the team to us as to the marketing program. And then we've made a minor change to the back where we've added insurance coverage requirements as Exhibit A. You'll remember last time I was before you, this was blank. These are the insurance coverages that the team is required to cover for their liability under this agreement. The one missing provision here that you will see in the next draft is an additional insured provision where they affirmatively have the obligation to have the stadium authority as an additional insured. That did not get into this draft, but it will be in the final draft. Those are the changes on that document.
Thank you, Mr. Arnold. Any questions from the board? Okay, entertain a motion for approval.
Tommy White, motion to approve.
Ken Evans, second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Item 20.
Yes, item 20 is a estoppel and recognition agreement. You will remember again that the Stadco is borrowing $850 million from Bank of America. Part of the security for that will be a leasehold mortgage on Stadco's rights to the property, which is under a lease. These item 20 and item 21 are estoppel and recognition agreements by the authority, where the authority makes certain representations and warranties to the lender. The lease is in full force and effect. We have no evidence of defaults, that kind of thing. And we also agree to recognize Bank of America as a secured party with the right to foreclose and step into Stadco's shoes and complete the stadium and all of that. In the interest of full disclosure, we are bringing to you all changes we've made to all documents. There is not a single substantive change to this document. We have taken the brackets. We have clarified that there will be a third one of these estoppel certificates that I will get to later. That's on page 3. And we have done nothing really else to this document on 20 or 21. And I'm happy to go over 21 when we get there, or you can take them all together.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Arnold. Any questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Tommy White, motion to approve.
Ken Evans, second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
21 is a similar estoppel certificate. This is a subordinated loan that is being a subordinated obligation that Stadco has to Bank of America. It is also secured by a deed of trust on the property, only a second lien deed of trust. It's the same document as 20, where we, the Stadium Authority, make representations, warranties, and assurances to Bank of America.
Any questions from the board? Okay. Entertain a motion for approval.
Tommy White, motion to approve.
Ken Evans, second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Item 22.
You will remember from last time, there were a few documents that you all had seen for the first time last time. We did not ask you to approve them in form because you had only seen them once, and the policy of the Stadium Authority Board and its staff is to not bring you a document only once, but to bring you a document twice so you have time to look at it. This document, the Calculation Agency Agreement, does not have any changes from the version that you saw last, but this is the second time that you're seeing it, so we'd like it approved in form. If you'll remember, with the financing that of the PSL revenues by Bank of America, there are a lot of calculations and equations and formulas that need to be done, so Bank of America knows how much money they're going to loan into the PSL program. Of course, the Stadium Authority, while we're the ones that are facilitating that, we don't have the staff to do all of the calculations. So again, much like the marketing arrangement, we've hired the Raiders Football Club to be our calculation agent to make all those calculations.
Bad idea.
Thank you, Mr. Ronald. Any questions from the board? Okay. Entertain a motion to approve.
Tommy White, motion to approve.
Ken Evans, second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great, thank you. 23.
Mr. Chairman, item number 23 is the 36.1 resolution that the Stadium Authority Board will ultimately have to make a series of determinations requesting that the county issue bonds, stadium bonds, on behalf of the project. There are a number of determinations the Stadium Authority Board has to make, similar to the last item. This was brought before the Stadium Authority Board in your last meeting. It was the first time that you'd seen it, and therefore it's being brought back here to be potentially approved in form, subject to all of the exhibits being completed. There are 7 items that are included. Some of the exhibits are now attached, others of them are pending. I'll just walk through them relatively quickly, pausing on one that requires your attention. Item number 1 is the Stadium Authority has entered into the development agreement and the lease agreement. Both will be included once they are approved as exhibits A and B. The determination that requires some additional attention is item number 2. This is the determination that the proceeds of the tax, the room tax, that will be pledged for the payment or the repayment of the general obligations will generate sufficient revenue to have a debt service coverage ratio of 1.5 times the anticipated debt service for every year the obligation.
And they won't.
As part of the handouts for today, it's a separate one. It looks like this. It says draft on the top of it. This is a technical memorandum that's submitted for the Stadium Authority Board's consideration. I will just highlight a couple of items to be up for consideration again at the next meeting. Essentially, the first 2 paragraphs outline what the obligation is, section 36(1)B of Senate Bill 1. The third paragraph, if you will, talks about the room rate that is going to be imposed. And then paragraph 4 sort of hits on some of the key elements that are important. I do want to express my thanks to the county and its financial advisors for working with us in terms of what we can anticipate in terms of debt service. But for FY 2018, projected revenue is $49.9 million. The first full year of debt service will be FY 2019. The Stadium Authority Board will need to have its revenues increased by 0.38% in order to hit that number to have 1.5 times coverage. From that point forward, because it's it's anticipated to be an accelerating debt service, room revenue would have to increase by roughly 1.8% per year. The highest individual year of growth is 1.803% in FY 2033. The lowest rate is 1.79% in FY 2039. The only reason that I even bring this up is because the variation relative to that is very small overall. The fundamental question that's presented here is whether or not the Stadium Authority Board can make the determination in a reasonable way that that is an achievable rate of growth such that that 1.5 times coverage would be achieved. I would draw your attention to page 2 of this memorandum, in which we show the 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year, and 17 year compound annual growth rates for the room tax. You'll notice that each one of these is in excess of 1.8%, and during the worst period in at least modern history for Southern Nevada, relative to our tourism industry, the 10-year period from 2007 to 2017, a period in which the Great Recession existed, that growth rate was 2.9%.
This is bullshit.
In the paragraph that follows, there are several other factors that would suggest that growth will continue into the foreseeable future. These include a number of things, including building of additional hotels, including the Las Vegas brand, McCarran International Airports continuing to expand, and so forth and so on, included there. The paragraph that follows are the acknowledgement that there are also risks. There are circumstances that could result in slower than expected growth. For example, acts of God, acts of terrorism, war, a deep and protracted recession, litigation that materially reduces the lodging tax base, rate, or yield, failure of Las Vegas to maintain its competitive position. Having gone through all of these and looked at the evidence as it exists today relative to what we know, it is staff's conclusion that the likelihood of being able to hit or exceed the anticipated rate is significant, and the potential of not hitting it is relatively remote given the facts and evidence. So that memorandum will be attached as to.
He and I had an argument about this. He is completely wrong. He really is.
Jeremy,
ought to be locked up.
Yes.
I'd just like to pause on that one. Does the board have any questions on that? We've been kind of moving through documents.
You ought to ask some questions.
The changes have not been all that substantive, but this one matters. And I would just, yeah, I won't even respond to that. I just point out, I know Jeremy did, I'm just kind of repeating some of this. The worst 10-year period of time we've ever had is reflected in this document. Is that correct?
In modern era, yes, sir.
Yes. I think it just bears repeating or pointing out that the bonds themselves will be issued with a full year of debt service reserve generated as a result of the bond process. The waterfall will generate another year of debt service reserve. Those debt service reserves will retain the interest that they generate once that money is in those funds, so that should grow over time, certainly will as well. And that we are certifying here, or will certify here, that we're comfortable that 1.8%.
Okay.
Okay, agenda item 25.
Agenda item 25 is the Construction Monitor Engagement Letter, or JLL, joint on the Sal Merritt and Harris is the Construction Monitor. The Construction Monitor was hired initially by Bank of America to provide reports for Bank of America. For the efficiency of the project, they are also providing reports that the statute requires to be provided to.
Folks, I had to take a phone call, hence the interruption.
This is their engagement letter. As I mentioned before, there are some fees on page 2. $6,000 to begin with, $4,000 for the final report, and then $1,000 for monthly reports. Roughly $40,000 all told in fees. Stadco's agreed to pay those fees. We also have a right here that if Stadco doesn't pay those fees, we can pay the fees and still get the reporting. All these reports are required by the Construction Funds Trust. So if nobody pays these fees and the reports aren't done, then the money doesn't move out of the Construction Funds Trust. So we've got it all tied up. At the end here, there's a paragraph that makes it clear that the Construction Monitor also provides a report to prove up the first $100 million was spent by Stadco, and that there is only $50 million left at the end, because you'll remember the Stadium Authority / county money comes in second and then last.
Any questions for Mr. Arnold? Okay, thanks, Mr. Arnold. Agenda item 26.
Agenda item 26 is another one of the estoppel and recognition agreements. This one is in connection with the G4 loan. You'll remember that part of the financing is a roughly $200 million loan from the NFL through their G4 program. The NFL, to secure the payback of that loan, will file a leasehold deed of trust encumbering Stadco's leasehold interest in the property. This is, again, just the same representations and warranties we've made to Bank of America that we are also making to the NFL, and recognizing the NFL as a lender under the provisions of the lease agreement. Again, it's not for action, but we want to make sure that you see all the documents that you're going to be asked to act on.
Any questions from the board? Agenda item 27.
We are now getting down to the really fancy documents. Agenda item 27 is a memorandum of stadium lease. There is a provision in the stadium lease that allows Stadco to file of record in the real property records of Clark County a memorandum telling the world that they are the tenant under this 30-year lease. This is the document that does that. This document does not change the lease. It just gets filed in the real property records and puts everybody on notice that a lease exists. So if the stadium authority somehow wanted to sell the land out from under Stadco, they couldn't from a notice standpoint. Again, a normal real estate transaction document.
Questions for Mr. Arnold? Okay, agenda item 28.
Item 28 is a similar memorandum of the team use agreement. If you'll remember the structure here, the stadium authority owns the land. They lease the land to Stadco, which is owned by the Davis family through Holdco. Stadco then leases the facility to the team entity for the team to play their games. This is just a memorandum that the NFL requires that the team also files a record so everybody knows that there's a lease from Stadco to the team.
Can't imagine there's any questions on that, but I'll ask. Yeah. Okay.
Should be.
Thank you. Agenda item 29.
Save the simplest agreement for last. So as part of the dedication, the Stadco will be providing a deed, which will be recorded. And in order to record a deed, you have to also provide a State of Nevada Declaration of Value form. It'll be signed by both Stadco and the authority. And it basically says that the transfer is exempt from transfer tax because it's a transfer to a governmental agency. And so it's just, you're seeing it for the first time. It's not new, but we just are new to you. And so we wanted to bring it to your attention. Also, I forgot to mention one item when I was talking about diligence, and so I wanted to talk about real quick. To the extent that there are future offsite improvement agreements that the Raiders need to enter into, or Stadco needs to enter into, the county did say that they would add a statement that those obligations will not be binding on the authority as to new ones. And so that's it for this one, but it's not up for approval either at this time.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Otto? Okay.
Boy, we made the time.
I'll save most of my thanks for next week when we actually get to the point where we can sign documents. But I know the last long period of time, but certainly a very intense period of time over the last month or so for everybody involved. I certainly appreciate the work. I know that everybody on the board agrees with that, as does our community. And I just want to thank you for the countless hours that everybody has put in order to get to this point. We're excited about potentially seeing the finish line on all these documents next week. And it's great to see that the Raiders have taken the enabling work agreement seriously. If you drive by the stadium, there is a huge amount of work going on. It's impressive. So appreciate you moving forward on that. I say good luck next week in your meetings, and we look forward to getting back with you after your successful return. With that, we will open agenda item 30. Is there any member of the public that would like to address the board? Okay, seeing none.
No,
to 9:31
no
is
Dan
adjourned,
Schwartz.
and we will adjourn. Thank you.
Wow. Well, no Dan Schwartz. He said he was going to be the Nevada treasurer. I'm interested to find out why he didn't attend.
What I'm doing is I'm taking the bags and putting good tomatoes in it, and I think
there are two serious problems. First of all, the non-relocation agreement, as it's written, expressly names Mark Davis as the controlling person. In today's meeting, you heard Mark Arnold, the attorney, say that the Davis family has taken itself out of the controlling position and left it to what is called holdco. That should be reflected in the non-relocation agreement document. Right now, it's not, so the non-relocation agreement document needs to be rewritten. And someone needs to ask, hey, how come that situation wasn't taken care of? As it stands right now, it's a fooler. The Stadium Authority will think that the non-relocation agreement is valid and then transfer the land and the money on that basis. But in reality, the Raiders have left themselves an out. And they could, for whatever reason, decide that, hey, we want to relocate someplace else. And by the way, we can do that because your document doesn't name the Davis family, it names Holdco. The Holdco only applies to Las Vegas. It doesn't apply to us. So that's an argument they could make. That's out there. And it's not surprising, but it's sickening is the word, that the Las Vegas Stadium Authority would simply rubber stamp this change without question. No, I mean, Ken Evans asked what Holdco was, right? But it was more like, oh, okay. In other words, this is too complicated for me. You know, Ken Evans and Tommy White are construction guys. They're not legal guys, all right? So that's wild. I mean, this thing has got nothing. Nothing. I mean, nothing but future lawsuits written all over it. Excuse me. And the lawsuits, you would say, who would the lawsuits come from in that case? Well, in this case, or in that case, the lawsuits would come from, well, look, not hard to figure out. The Raiders could sue the contractor could sue the Raiders could sue the county could sue the Raiders, all right? And that's the situation that's set up here. The Raiders could sue the county saying, hey, you misrepresented yourself regarding the growth of revenues from the tax, okay? That's one thing out there. And Jeremy so steadfastly holding to the idea that the tax revenue is going to increase from the stadium hotel tax is one of the most irresponsible actions I've ever seen in government in my entire life. It really is. Hey, it's on them, not me. It's on them, not me. So that's what's sticking out there. Big time. Well, and let me put something, because Crawford just wrote, the tax will not grow. Let me put something out there. It's important to be aware of, okay? And that is that over the past year of collection of the tax, it has already not grown. It has actually shrank. We started off at 5 million in the March, and then we ended with 4.7 million in January. And before that, we had the lows not just during the period after the horrible tragedy of October. We started last June, and the visitor count for January of this year was less than January of the previous year. All right, according to Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. So all those trends are pointing down, and for a set of reasons that in part Jeremy referred to, like for example, changes in Las Vegas economic competitiveness. You have resorts being built in Macau, in China. You have casinos going up all around the country, in the United States, in Europe, and so that change is before us, and it hurts Las Vegas' classic position in the as a casino power. Okay, and the question is, what's it going to be left with? All right, you can't private sector your way out of this. You have to plan. You have to plan. So that's a big problem. That's a big problem that's sticking right out there. And Jeremy just sealed the fate of the county with that comment. He really did. Because if it comes to pass, and it already is coming to pass, that the revenues are not sufficient, and the Raiders are somehow harmed by that, they will point to that statement he made as evidentiary. The Raiders are like that, okay? They just are. They will say, hey, you guaranteed us increases in the tax. You did that, all right? And they would be able to point. They would be able to point to Jeremy's statements as evidence to back their claim. For anybody to, to want to get into that situation is sad. It's really sad. That's a legal death sentence. You should always have a caveat. Now, Jeremy will say, well, we have the insurances built, we have the safeguards built in. But look, they're not doing anything but having the stadium authority sign a document that says, oh yeah, these revenues will work at these levels and we expect them to increase. Whew, man, that's bad. That's bad. That's bad news. Bad news. Okay. So, oh yeah, Crawford, you're absolutely right. No one ever asked about the land. That has never come up. About the, sinking issue. That's never come up. All right. And Crawford says you can't wait for the March projections. Now, if the March projections, here's how to think about this. If the March projections come in at 5 million, the March projections really should come in, if you want to root for the stadium authority, at or above 5 million. If they come in below 5 million, it's a continuation of a problem. And then you have to look at the visitor counts. Okay. I haven't seen the visitor count. We won't see the March numbers until April. Just like we're not going to see the February numbers until we should be seeing the February numbers very soon from the stadium authority. Okay. And we should see that very soon. Okay, so yeah, there's a problem here. Those are two problems. Okay, so this is bad. Anyway, it is now almost 3 o'clock on the east. I have some other things I've got to do. I thank you for tuning in. And I apologize for the interruptions, but I want to thank Malcontent for the idea of switching over from Firefox to Chrome browser. Chrome browser works much better with YouTube on live stream than Firefox, so I will never make that mistake again. Interestingly, however, Firefox at one point, prior to the most recent upgrade, if you want to call it that, is Firefox worked really well. Malcontent says, I feel bad. I'll see everybody later.